In this video, we are going to look at how to add color to the pictures of black and white. So you can see kind of I've already started doing this here. I'll just kind of walk you through what I did and kind of show you how to move forward from there. So you can see I did this kind of quickly. My colors may not be perfect. The key is you're working on this stuff. Zoom in as you're working, but then zoom out when you're done and kind of look at the stuff. Like the color for my father here looks pretty good. One of my uncles here, though, he kind of looks like he's been in a tanning booth a little too long. He's got like that spray tan type thing going on. So as I zoom out, it's a little more noticeable. When I was looking real close at this, that color may look fine. So again, it's all about kind of just zooming in and out as you're working on this stuff. So you are going to end up with a whole bunch of layers. So my recommendation would be stay as organized as possible. Name the layers as you go. And also contain them within folders. If I was doing this entire project here, probably what I would do is I would generate a folder for each person, because I'm going to have 3 sets of like shirts, 3 sets of lips, 3 sets of eyes, teeth, all those kind of things I may end up doing in different layers. So the more organized you are, just kind of the easier things will be on you. So let's assume that I've already restored the whole photo, and again, that's something I could actually even do later. I still have this restored layer and this original layer that we talked about in the previous videos. So let's add color to my uncle's shirt right here. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to create a new layer. And to show you what I was talking about with organizing this stuff, let's create a group or a folder. And I'm going to call this group center. So now I know that that's for the person in the center. I'm going to drag this layer into that folder. Now I know that that's contained within there because it's indented to the right, and if I close this, you can see it's part of it. So actually the situation I happen to have right now on my screen, I have a folder inside of another folder. So if I close this one, see, everything is tucked inside of there. And then inside of this folder is this new layer that I just created that will be for his shirt. So that would be a great way to do it. I could have all my coloring in one group, and inside of that I could have 3 groups, one for each person. You know, just it's a way to stay organized. You could also just have this be here and have a center, a left, and a right folder. So it's just different ways of organizing things. So kind of whatever works for you, but again, the more organized you are, the better this will be. Alright, so I'm on this new layer here. Now I have a couple options. I can, if I want, make a selection, or you can skip that part. So let me show you kind of where the selection would be useful. So let's just kind of look at the basic theory behind this. If we have a selection, doesn't matter what it is, if we go to use our brush, or really any other tool, we can only affect the selection. I can't possibly color outside the lines even if I try. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to undo that. I'm going to get rid of this selection. And now if I make a nicer selection, if I select this shirt, it's going to help me, because rather than me trying to paint these edges perfect, it will automatically kind of line itself up as long as my selection is good. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the layer that has the pixels that I want to select. In this case, the picture has the pixels, so that's where I'm going. I'm going to use one of my selection tools, and I'm going to quickly select this shirt. Now, if you are not real comfortable with the selection stuff, you could skip this part, because chances are I'm going to have to clean this up after I'm done anyway to kind of improve this. Now where I got too much of a selection here, I'm going to hold Option, and I'm going to remove these parts that are not part of what we're working on. Alright, so that's like sort of my selection there. I could continue cleaning this up, make this a little nicer, but for our purposes right now, that is fine. I'm going to take my brush tool and I'm going to decide what color this shirt should be. One of the things with a black and white photo, you don't necessarily know what color things were, so if you make some artistic decisions here and decide what color, nobody's really going to argue it and say, well, you know, that person was wearing a green shirt, not a red shirt. So let's pick a color here. Let's go with like a yellowish for him. So I'm on my brush tool, normal settings here, everything's set at 100%, opacity and flow, mode is normal. I'm using a fairly large brush here, and I'm just going to start coloring, but I want to watch that I'm not on the layer where I made the selection, I'm on this new layer that I made the color in. And that's important, because as I color, you see everything disappears. The key is to use blending modes. Now if I was coloring on this original restored layer, I wouldn't be able to put a separate blending mode on there. So as I pick through here, you're going to see that some of these look great, some of them not so much. So as I flip through, I could keep going through, and eventually I'll get to some things that I like, and then chances are, once I find one I like, I may need to, let's go back to, for now, multiply. Multiply works well for a lot of these. So I look at that and I'm like, well, that's basically what I wanted, but it's a little too dark. Well, you know what, let's change that now before we cover the rest. So we go to a lighter color here, and I'm going to go ahead and again color over that. Now if you notice, that to me is about what I wanted, so I'm going to go ahead and just keep coloring here. So whatever color you had in your head, you would just kind of have to do this until you get what you want. You might have to change that color 3 or 4 times. Alright, so I'm going to color all this in. I could have also done edit fill instead of coloring this in with the paintbrush because I have a selection. I can fill that selection with a color. I'm going to get rid of my selection by doing Command D or Select Deselect. And now you can see where I would need to zoom in and kind of clean that up. I got some paint kind of on his face. So I'm going to use the eraser. I'm going to make the eraser in my case smaller. And I'm going to start erasing where I don't want that to be. I'm going to change the hardness of my brush here a little bit because it's a little too crisp of an edge. It's not going to kind of look natural. So if I give that just a little bit of a hardness, so somewhere around like 50-60% with that thing, 65% in this case, and I'm just kind of erasing here. Now if I erase too far, I could always go back with the brush and add more color. And it would just kind of be back and forth between the brush and the eraser until I get that edge how I want it to be. Same deal with the sides here and kind of the rest of this. So you can see I'm starting to get the color here. Now another thing I could do to add levels of detail to this, I could kind of eliminate where that button was and where this button was, and then later I could go back and do those as a separate color. So all the details I could kind of do as separate things. The more detail you put on this, the more realistic this is going to look. So let's say we were working on something else and I was coloring a different color, and then later I realized that I missed the spot. I want to get back to this original color so that I can color the shirt some more. Well, if I use my eyedropper, it's not necessarily going to work the right way that your computer is set up right now. If I eyedrop this, as you notice, if I move around, I'm getting all different shades of like this tan and like mustard color. The reason that's happening, the computer, because I have this blending mode on, multiply, is letting me see through the shirt, through the color we put on the shirt, down to the picture that's behind it. So you kind of get what's happening here. We have all these different colors and that's what's showing up. Well, if I try to paint with one of those colors right now, it doesn't match. What I need to do is I need to change the way that my eyedropper is working. So instead of sampling every layer on my screen as I move around the eyedropper, I want to make it so that I am just sampling my current layer. What that's going to do for me, all the computer really sees right now when I do that is, oops, let's turn that back on, turn these off so you can kind of see what's going on. Now as I move around, really this is all the computer is going to see. Even if I have all these layers on, because I have the eyedropper set to just sample the current layer, I'm in the shirt layer. No matter where I go here, I get that exact same color that I was painting with before, and then I can go back to my brush and paint whatever I missed. In this case, let's say I was kind of finishing up the bottom of his shirt. I can come down here and keep painting, and it'll match what I already did exactly. So another thing that you could do when you kind of feel like you're there with this thing, if you decide it's nice but it just needs a little bit less, you could drop the opacity on each layer a little bit as you need. For some of them you will, some of them you won't. That's why it's nice to keep all these things separate. And another beautiful thing about keeping every single color separate is if you want to change colors completely, remember we get 2 different options. We get one set of menus if I right click on the layer here, and we get a whole different set if I right click here. What this allows us to do is if I right click on the picture itself, I can do select pixels. So now I selected that part I colored in. Now I can simply go to edit fill, and I could pick a completely different color. Let's say I change my mind and I want his shirt to be more red. Let's go with like a reddish brownish kind of color here. So let's see what that looks like. If I like it, great. If I don't, I can keep going to edit fill as many times as I want. So basically, once you've painted it in once, you're good to go, as long as you have just one color per layer. If you start putting all this stuff together on one layer, it won't work out that way because you can't do that select pixels thing. So that's where this is nice. So again, a lot of kind of small steps here, but for the most part, once you get going, it's fairly easy to do. And then it's just a lot of like zoom in, be real accurate here. If I was a little bit smoother with this in this area here, the coloring would look a little more natural. Again, same deal with the details. You can see kind of what I did on the face here. I didn't color the eyeballs. I didn't color the teeth here. I haven't really done the lips yet. But it's not like I just colored the face and just covered all of those things. I believe on maybe this one. Whoops, let's zoom out a little bit here. On this one, you can see I kind of spent a little more time on the mouth part of this already. So you can see where I did do a color over there. Now the lips aren't a much different color than the rest, but it makes a big difference when it's all said and done. Same deal, I didn't paint tan onto the teeth, and that enhances this effect as you kind of start zooming out. You're going to see like kind of the quality of this thing. So that's basically all you need to do to color these pictures in.